Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Jenn Commandments podcast. I am your host, Jenn Wien. I'm an engineer currently working in Wisconsin. I grew up in the Chicagoland area and I went to college in Michigan. Hey, God, what a week. You know, it's the end of the fiscal year. And if you work in the corporate world, you know that it's a very hectic time. Everyone's trying to meet goals. Everyone's trying to get their sales up before the end of the fiscal year, get as many orders and whatever in, so that your numbers look as good as they can for the fiscal year. And so we've been working, I work as like a contract engineer, and so I've been trying to bill as many hours as I can these last couple months. And so, damn, I'm fucking tired. But happy Labor Day weekend. Yay. Shout out if you've ever been in labor. Love you so bad. Um, yeah, I don't know what actual Labor Day is for, but happy to have a day off. I don't know if this is real or not, but like Big Daddy T, I saw a tweet. I don't know if it was a doctored tweet or not. You can never tell with like Big Daddy T. Um, but I saw that he like tweeted maybe that like Labor Day is a useless holiday and we need more working holidays as Americans. And I just think that's fucking crazy. I just wanted to bring that up, that I think that's fucking ludicrous. Because, like I said, I have coworkers and I have, like, I don't know, people who I've worked with in the past who work in European countries and they be taking like full quarters off and shit, like, so I don't know. Go capitalism, go America. We are seeing in real time the end of like, it's so weird because when we were kids and like when our parents were kids, the industrial revolution and like the like technology revolution, like the technological advances that have been happening in the last, I don't know, 25 years since we were a kid. It's just crazy because I don't know. I know that all the people my age, I don't know all of us, but many of us have like consumption problems. Like we, and I don't know where that stems from. I don't know if it stems from the fact that like many of my peers were told no a lot as children, and like so we overcompensate now or whatever. But like I've been really working through like my relationship to stuff lately, and like having hella shit, and how like, like I wouldn't say that um I'm a hoarder specific. I don't know, man. I was like born into a family of hoarders adjacent, who just like need to keep shit for no reason. And I like that comes from trauma. And like I don't know what sort of trauma that is, but it does come from, and I think personally that someone who's traumatized in various ways, for me at least, of like knowing that this inanimate object would never hurt me, I think is my sort of like relationship to stuff. And so like I would rather surround myself with like objects that mean a lot to me, or like represent people who mean a lot to me, over, I don't know. I don't know. It's just like a very interesting it's a very interesting thing. But I've been cleaning this week, like deep cleaning. So I am throwing a Halloween party again this year. And I'm very excited, but I remember from it was 2 years ago, that like I was very stressed out the week before, and I thought I had planned pretty well throughout like leading up to it, and I just realized that like that's not the case. So I'm starting super super ahead this year. And so I'm doing like a base clean now where like I'm deep cleaning like rearranging, making sure things are where I want them to be for the party. So that I'm less stressed when I clean again for it. I'm not like doing double the work, you know? Anyway, so I've been cleaning, and with that, you know, I always go through my stuff. Whenever I deep clean, I'm going through like basically all of my objects and being like, can I get rid of this? And like, am I ready to get rid of this? Is it like, I don't know. If you can't tell, like I like stuff. And I'm changing that relationship as I've gotten better with money management, as I've gotten better with my issues with excess, like as it relates to binge eating, as it relates to binge drinking, as it relates to weed consumption, all those things. Like my big issue, like codependence, my big issue is like too much, right? And so to scale back and find balance in those other parts of my life, I'm seeing it now trickle into all parts of my life, you know? And I, stuff, you know, stuff. God, it's been a weird week because I've been really adamant about getting myself together. Like I have been in sort of like a depressive episode the last couple of weeks. And I've been out of it now for like, I don't know, maybe a week and a half. Or like I've at least identified in the last couple of weeks that I was sort of depressed, and then so I've been like taking steps to try to be less. It is hard for me to, it's like as soon as I recognize, or like, yeah, as soon as I recognize, it still takes me a little bit. Like I need to be like, bitch, you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. And not like, I don't know, honor your feelings, but also be like, it's not cute. Like, I think when I would get into depressive episodes before, I would just be like, well, I'll just sit in this forever. Like, it's very comfortable. It's very normal, you know, because I grew up feeling that way a lot. And so now just like anything else, because it's not the habit to not be depressed, like, I need to physically be like, bitch, take care of yourself, please. You know? And so I've been working on that. I've been working on that. Working on taking care of myself. And that starts with like, you know, for me at least, some of the first things that I notice that go when I'm not taking care of myself is like, I don't care to shower. I don't care to work out, and I don't care to like bring my best self to places, whether that be like, I don't know, showering being a big one, but like, I don't know, at my best self, I like dressing up. I like, you know, there are just like specific things that I like to have done that make me feel good about myself, and like let me know and let my body know that like I'm somebody worth taking care of and we're gonna do it, you know? Um and I don't know, I've just been like sitting in my bed rotting for like, I don't know, 2.5 weeks or so. And bitch, get out of your bed, you know? Like, bitch, get out of your bed. That's like like truly for me, it really just comes down to that. Like I really have to just like look myself in the face and be like, you, as comfortable as this is, you're gonna feel worse about yourself the longer that this lasts. Okay. Cause like, I don't know, the longer you go without working out, the longer you go without like with binge, like it's just like I don't know. It's too much. It's too much, Dante. It's too much. Um so yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm in that phase where I'm like getting it back together and like um what have you. I like, part of it for me is the break of routine. And so as much as I love traveling and as much as traveling is the thing that also keeps me not depressed in a weird way, it because it takes me out of the routine, it I have to get better at the transition between like travel gen and home gen, because like I need to make sure there's just like a list of things that I need to make sure are done before I leave. There are a list of things that I should do once I get back, and I don't know, I need to start like, because traveling is such a big part of my life, I need to come up with some processes so that I'm not just like discombobulated every time I come home. Dante's being a nuisance. Huh. You're being a nuisance. So, yeah, that's what I'm working on. I've also been, like we've talked about, my therapist is out of town. And so I've been sort of contemplating things on my own. I did watch a Demi Moore documentary yesterday, um about obviously Demi Moore. But like, okay, so it talks about her childhood, and it talks about, it was by B the commentator. I love her videos. And she discusses how Demi, so she started, her parents were both alcoholics, both addicts in various ways. And so she left her house when she was 16, and like her mom sold her for like sex when she was like 16. And so obviously she had like a very tumultuous relationship with her mom for most of her life. And I don't know. That's not even the point that I really want to get to today. Like we've talked about mommy issues, we talked about familial issues, on and on. Um, but really what I did want to talk about as it relates to Demi Moore is, so she was married to Bruce Willis for a while, and then um once they got divorced, she was just in this very like vulnerable state. And in that vulnerable state, she met Ashton Kutcher. And at the time, Ashton Kutcher was 15 years younger than her. Um, and so she really then tried to be like, and she goes on to marry Ashton. But like she tries to have another child. And mind you, at this point she's like 40, 41. And she does get pregnant, but she has a miscarriage. And her insecurity and vulnerability and just like poor overall mental health. She had 3 kids with Bruce Willis. Demi talks at a round table with her kids, and they really discuss like just how terrible that time was. During that time, she also breaks her sobriety and gets back into drinking, and she starts abusing prescription pills. Like this is a very rough time in Demi's life, and to hear her kids and Demi be able to have like a very real, constructive conversation about what that time period looked like from the kids' lens. And then, like, because at some point the kids don't talk to her for like 3 years. Like, once she's really back into her addiction, and then she talks about, really, what I want to talk about is, at some point while they're having this conversation, she mentions that she was addicted to Ashton at that time. Like, um, she wanted his validation, she wanted his love so bad that she was willing to like bend and whatever to be what Ashton wanted her to be. And like he wouldn't even be telling her what he wanted her to be. Like from what I can tell, Ashton was like a, I mean, like he was as good as any other 5-year-old man could be in a relationship. Like, you know, I'm sure that he had his own problems, but from what I could tell in the documentary, like Ashton was a pretty good husband to her, other than the fact that she was just like mentally unwell. And they really, because he was a 25-year-old man, like he probably didn't really have any other experience. And so, like, they were so like addicted to one another. And they like Demi openly talked about this addiction to a person. And I thought that that was really an interesting way to put codependence. I had never heard codependence put in the terms of in the vernacular of addiction, which I think is a very relevant conversation to the codependent conversation because listen, as somebody who has an addictive personality, who has issues with excess, as we talked about, being addicted to a person is it's not only possible, but it's probable. If you already have these other problems, dude, if you've already been addicted to, like, I don't know, like alcohol and weed and sex, probably, like, there's just other, like, yeah, babe, of course you're going to get addicted to a person because just like everything else, that is like a heightened, you get some sort of hormonal shit from love, like whether it be oxycontin, whether it be like, there are various hormones that are released only during sex or like when you're around the person that's supposed to be comfortable. But that's the thing about codependence, right? Is like that's the person you're supposed to be comfortable around, but you being so insecure about losing them makes you clench, right? You're like, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. And that makes them, they're like, bitch, that makes somebody feel restricted, right? Where like, had she just sort of been like happy with herself and like, so she also mentioned that like in her marriage with Bruce Willis, she was like, she felt that she was too independent with him, where like she and him worked so independently that she thought one of her failures in her marriage to him was that she gave him too much space, because like he cheated on her, I think, and like that's how they, like, their marriage broke up, I think. I don't exactly remember. um but um I don't know, it was just like a very good, I listen, I didn't really know who Demi Moore was before The Substance came out. And I still want to do an episode about The Substance because, and I think that she was the perfect person for that role, truly. Because so much of her life was surrounded by, like, so much of being an actor, a model, whatever you are in Hollywood is reliant on the way your body looks, the way that you present to the world. Like, you know, I really want to read her memoir. The documentary that I watched, it's on YouTube, referenced it a lot. And I just, I really felt for her because she just explains how so much of the driving force of her success was rooted in escapism and rooted in trying to challenge herself, but also a lot of that stems from, for her at least, was like proving herself, whether it be to herself, proving herself to herself, or proving herself to her object of affection, to her kids, to the world. Um, and I think that when you grow up in a, I don't know, like situation that you've never really felt as though your parents are like proud of you or even like present, you look for that validation in everyone else. At least I know I did. Not to say that I'm like anything like Demi Moore, but like listening to her story really helped me reflect on my own, of like, oh, these are where some of these behaviors come from. This is a problem for not just me. A lot of my I think anger in my early years, um, and not that I'm not angry anymore. Hey. Like clearly I'm still angry about a few things, but um a lot of my anger stemmed from the fact that I didn't understand that there was anybody else in the world going through what I was going through. I had felt as though I was the only person in the world who was dealing with like a an abusive father, a emotionally repressed mother. Like I thought I was the only one, the only kid in the world who was really like in it on their own. And I like it's crazy because like my childhood was mild compared to like many other people's childhoods, right? Like I think I've sort of started to understand that in the last few years, like or years in the last few months specifically, like as much as I think my childhood was rough, and I like it was for various reasons, there were other things that could have been bad about it that it wasn't. And like I am very grateful for that, you know, like um not that it's a competition, but like I'm just grateful for that it wasn't worse, I guess. But anyway, to hear her, Demi Moore, famously one of the most successful actresses of the 80s and 90s, you know, to hear her be like, so much of my actions were rooted in insecurity. I was like, oh, well, like if Demi Moore, if all of her actions are rooted in insecurity, what makes me think that I'm different or I'm, you know, like, I don't know. It's weird. We're all going through like basically the same shit, huh? You know? So yeah, go watch that. Go watch that Demi Moore documentary. Go watch The Substance if you haven't already. It really outlines what society's expectations of women and what society's idea of what a woman's role in society is really shown in The Substance. And I don't know, it's been on my mind a lot. It's sort of triggering to watch. So that's the only reason that I haven't done an episode on it yet. Like I had a week or two where I watched it like 3 or 4 times. And then I started getting triggered. And I was like, no, this is bad for your mental health, bitch. Like maybe you should relax, you know? Um, but when something really affects me that way, I become obsessed with it. Like when I'll probably watch that Demi Moore documentary again because that really affected me. To it's so interesting to hear celebrities' stories because most of them come from, I think you only want to become an actor or an actress. Okay, all right, restart. Fame is hell, right? To be perceived on such a large scale all the time is exhausting. Of course, it comes with like perks of like I don't know, access. It comes with money. It comes with like there are plenty of pros to like fame and celebrityism, right? But and like I think it's very known that many of those pros may not be worth it to many of the actors and actresses that get into it. I think that you get into Hollywood or you get into entertainment because like your reality is so miserable. Not miserable, but like so mundane, so you are so unhappy in your reality that you're willing to deal with all that because that'll just be a different hell, but at least you'll have money. That's sort of how that's probably how a lot of people of course, I do think that people are like passionate about music and passionate about acting and all that shit, but I do think a big part of it is like, well, I already feel all those things anyway, so I might as well get paid big bucks for it. You know, like um Many of them have bad relationships with family. Many of them come from like hoods. Many, like, I don't know. Many of them have very shitty life stories. And so it makes me think that, like, and also another thing that comes to mind is like something I've talked about with my therapist about like the podcast and like whatever, getting into art and creativity. Cause I think everyone is creative. I think given the opportunity, not given the opportunity, not everyone, but like I think most people would do a creative field given the opportunity. I think that they would entertain or they would play sports or like some sort of hobby into their career if they could, right? Whether it be painting, whatever. Yapping into a microphone. When my therapist and I were talking about that sort of thing, because I did mention that, like, especially when I was in improv, that I was uncomfortable with acting because I thought I was so humiliated up there on stage because I was so worried about how other people were perceiving me. But she was like, well, don't you worry about that anyway. And I'm like, well, yeah, you know. Um, and that changed my perspective a lot. Like all of those things, at least for me, as a former people pleaser, as a former like chameleon in spaces, I think over the last 2 years or so, I've gotten a lot better at being myself no matter what space I'm in. I think certainly like there are some times where I'm still very shy and like not really willing to let people in on who I am. But like before that, before I was comfortable with myself, she was like, you act every day. And not act, but like she's like, you're performing every day. So like she's like, I think you'd be really good at acting because, like that's bitch, that's what you're doing. And I think that that's interesting. That's just like an interesting point to all this, of like many of us act every single day, whether that be you have to code switch, whether that be you are a chameleon and you whatever you need to do to fit into space. I think Demi also talked in an interview about how she grew up. I forget what her parents did for work that required her to move so much, but she like her so she did no less than two schools every single school year growing up, which is fucking crazy, by the way. My mom has a very similar upbringing. Um that might just not be normal for the time, but again, these were different times. This was the 70s and 80s growing up. And so when I think about it, I don't know what was happening contextually within. I think a lot was happening in the Middle East, and the US was probably pretty wealthy because we were helping, aid wars. And our biggest export is like the military and weapons. And so like I think this was a time in the I'm actually talking out of my ass right now, so I don't know. But this was a time in the US where, like, I don't know, you could buy a house for like, I don't know, belly lint, and like then you have 8 kids and then you get a farm and you make them be employed on that farm, and then like that's sort of how you navigate your life. Like I don't know, like life was different back then where like I don't know, Demi's parents were both addicts and they both did fine for themselves even in their addiction. Like they still paid rent and shit. So like okay, anyway, so she moved like I don't know, twice a year at least. And she said because of that um she really had to learn how to adapt in spaces, and she really had to learn how to evaluate a space, figure out who people were in that space, and figure out how she wanted to navigate through it. And if I had to like quantify a trait, I would say that's probably one of like the most valuable traits that you can have. And not just for acting, just in life, where and I think that that comes from being around lots of different people and not centering yourself in that space. That's another thing. I think that's partially why, like, men, and we could talk about this too. I think that men struggle with that sort of the like being able to be malleable in spaces. I think that specifically white men struggle with this probably because they're used to being the center of attention in that space. Like, anyone else in a space, I'm a white woman and Demi Moore is a white woman. And so even she and we don't have as much bandwidth as I would say people of color or whatever. But like, I think why men struggle with like that sort of malleability trait is because they're used to their opinion being the most important opinion in the room. And like they're used to anyone just like listening to what they have to say. And I'll say that like I probably fall victim to that too. And not just because like I am a white woman, but because like people have historically valued my opinion, and so therefore I think that my opinion means something in spaces. Like, I white men, I get you, like, but I don't know, like, I think that's a very valuable trait to have, and I think that makes you somebody who allows people to be comforted by you. If you know how to recognize who someone is in a space and make them feel seen about it, I think you're really winning here. What was the other thing I wanted to bring up? Oh, okay. So I brought up men a little bit. We've historically been bringing up men a lot. Very few episodes of my podcast passed the Bechdel test. And so I've been talking through this, or I have talked through this with someone that I respect, and like, have been contemplating it since. And I love being a misandrist. Let's start there. It's one of my favorite traits. I love that shit. I love hating men. I think it's so fun. But I'm trying to unlearn that. And here's why. I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched the beginning of this think piece on Sabrina Carpenter and how we don't really know much about Sabrina Carpenter outside of the fact that she hates men or thinks men are useless, or she hates stupid men, or like she's attracted to dumb men, ugly, like whatever. All we know about Sabrina Carpenter is her trials and tribulations with men. Okay. And nothing else really. However, she's still seen as a feminist. Weird, right? And so I started to think about that a little bit. And I was like, okay. In addition to that, I talked with someone that I respect and trust, and like we were discussing, and he said something to the effect of like, well, at some point, right? Because like what you're saying right now, because I was on some man hater shit. I forget what I had sent to him, but it was some sort of post that was like on some man hater bullshit because I wanted to see how he would react. And that's another thing. Like, when I think it's perfectly reasonable to send out little tests to people because like how people respond to things says a lot about their character, right? And so I think it's fine to send tests to people, but also it fostered this really like healthy conversation about how like at some point it doesn't really feel like I want men to improve. It feels like I just want to do the same thing that men have done to women to men. And I sat back and I thought about it. And he said it much more eloquently than that, but like that was the gist, right? Is at some point you're becoming the oppressor that you claim to hate. And I think that that's right? That horseshoe theory of like sometimes you be going back around and that the harmful shit is happening again, right? And that was a good point. And that's not to say that like, I don't know, misandry is as terrible as misogyny. I think that's like trying to say that like white racism exists, you know? um but I do see the harm, right? I see the harm in talking shit about men and like how it would be discouraging to men who don't want to contribute to the problem. I think men should also just stop being sensitive cuz like, shut up. See, it's fun. I'm like, men should just shut the fuck up. Like, I don't know. But like, I don't know. So the tease is like, I've been trying to fucking figure out how to be a feminist. God, we've discussed this, how white feminism is toxic and how to best help the cause while keeping in mind that I'm a white woman, while like it's just a lot, and that's not a complaint. I'm willing to figure it out. Like, but I'm trying to get out of my man hater shit cuz I'm realizing eventually my goal would be to have a healthy relationship, and there is a 50-50% chance. Well, I would say it's probably a little bit more than that cuz like heteronormative society will probably has sunk its claws into me, because like I like women, but I don't know if it's so hard, dude. It's so fucking hard because I've been preaching and preaching and preaching about how I don't want a traditional relationship, right? Like, I don't want a man to expect me to cook and clean, and I don't want them to like those things that are expected from a nuclear home. I don't want those things to be expected of me. I will probably do those things. The tea is like I have been brainwashed to think that that is the way that a woman should act since before I could walk. Okay, like that is what I have been ingrained to think what a woman is. So likely I will do those things. Okay? That's sort of like the I guess reservation that I have with entering a romantic partnership with a man is because like I don't know how much of that shit I'll ever be able to let go of. Like, even if a man doesn't explicitly tell me that he expects me to keep the house clean or whatever, I internally think it's my job because I'm misogynistic. Okay. It's not just men, it's me too. Right. And so because I think, or that's what I've seen a woman be, I know that I'm not that woman. I know that I struggle to wash my dishes. I know that I struggle to keep my apartment clean. I know all these things about myself. I know that in theory, that would make me a bad quote unquote wife, nuclear wife. I am good at those things. I can do them, but I'm also a girl boss. I also work 40 hours a week. I have hobbies. I have things and people that I love. And as a man, you wouldn't be expected to give up those things to enter a relationship. However, the way that I've seen most of my aunts, my mom, my like I don't know, my older cousins, they have all had to give up their professional careers. They've all had to give up their friends. They've had to give up everything to be a mom and to be in like a happy partnership. And it by the way, the women usually aren't happy in those partnerships. And so like I let's bring it back. I If I want to have a relationship that isn't the traditional nuclear heteronormative relationship, then I can't expect men to court me the same way that I expect from a traditional man. So when I am like, men should buy me drinks, or men should be the one that sets up dates, or when I feel those very, very traditional things about dating, I try to take a step back and be like, does this foster the relationship that you know? Or does this foster the type of relationship that you want in the future? Because, like, for me, if I want to have a healthy relationship in the future, and likely it will be to a man, um, I am going to have to unlearn some of those things. And that's not to say that, like, I don't want a man that's going to take care of, like, but I take care of people too. And so, no, I like, I'm not going to be your fucking homemaker. However, I'm also not going to expect you to be the man of the house. And so, in my opinion, the type of relationships that are going to come from the next, because this is the first, I wouldn't say, actually, I would. This is the first generation of women who have always been allowed to have their own things. Always. Since the start of their adulthood. I like, whether that be a bank account, whether that be credit cards, whether anything that has historically been allowed for men. I grew up never knowing a world where that was not the case. I don't think my mom can say the same. And maybe like women my brother's age can say the same. Um but like, they're really the first generation. So I think a lot of millennials, they sort of just, they didn't have the freedom yet and like the tools. I think a lot of my radicalization came from my brother. Like, thank God I had a brother who was 16 years older than me, who was able to slowly but surely throughout the years be like, yeah, you don't have to do that though. I know that that's the way that mom said or dad said that that's the right way, but what about this? Like, I had somebody just like slowly putting in the back of my head throughout the years of like, yes, this is a way of life, but like, it doesn't have to be like that. And then I don't know. It's just like, it sucks being the first ones, because you don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know what a partnership that truly is of equal stature, where both parties can be in equilibrium as it relates to like power within the relationship. I don't, that's a new concept for us. I don't think that there's, in the history of history, that we've had romantic relationships that are rooted in love as opposed to monetary transaction. And like, that's not to say that people weren't having romantic relationships, but marriage is rooted in transaction, and it always has been. And so when you think, this is like very new for us to marry for love, like, in many societies, still to this day, you don't marry for love, you marry for transaction. And so, like, of course it's going to be hard, and we're all going through, like, a loneliness epidemic. You remember when they overturned Roe v. Wade, and they was like, fucking slut, why don't you just close your legs? We have the lowest birth rate ever in the history of history. I think right now, in the history of the country, we have the lowest birth rate. And for the first time in history, there are more 40-year-olds having kids than there are teenagers having kids. And I think that is a huge shift in the right direction as it relates to figuring out who you are and what you want out of life before you rush into a life that, once you're in it, you can't get out, babe. Once you're a mom for life. until your last breath, bitch, you are a mom. Like, holy fuck, that's scary. So, like, I don't know. And then there's sex. We started talking about sex a little bit last week. I think sex is something that I'll write about. I do know that I'll write eventually. I've been thinking I so when I was a freshman in college, I started a book as a way to like cope and get over my first love. And I wrote like, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 pages. And just like it's been shelved since. Um and it eventually I will revisit writing. I think writing is such a good way for me to talk about things, and I I don't really feel the best verbally. I feel most comfortable and most confident written. I feel like that's the cuz I can actually like sit there and like backspace, and I it's very calculated. Writing is very calculated, where for me speaking is more impulsion. Like I do think before I speak, like you'll hear me pause and whatever as I'm speaking to really make sure that I'm saying exactly what I want to say. But I just I don't know. I love the medium, the artwork of writing. And so sex is something I'll write about eventually, but I've been I don't know, just trying to figure out how to enjoy my body in like for the first time ever, like truly look at myself in the mirror for the first time without like judgment. You know, every time I've looked into a mirror since I was little has been through this very like harsh gaze where I'm like this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, where now obviously because I've done that for so long. It is like first instinct when I look in a mirror to point out, hey, you're starting to get a wrinkle. Cause I am, right? Like I'm already starting to get like a wrinkle like right here. I have some gray hairs. I like I love handles I don't like. Like they're just like when I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, it's very easy to point out the things about me that I don't like. However, I've been cuz like I wouldn't even before I would not even like walk around the house with like I wouldn't wear just like bra and underwear in the house. Like I and I live alone. Like I'm so uncomfortable with my body, and that's where it starts, right? In order to enjoy sex, you have to at least like you don't have to like your body, but bitch, you have to like be okay that it exists. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the first step for me. Is like, I used to view my body as, and I used to view sex as something that, like, a man would have to, like, get over this in order to love me. Like, I'm very confident in, like, my personality and, like, all sorts of other things about myself. But, like, I always just, like, assumed that my body is something that someone would have to get over in order to love me. And so because of that, I would never participate in like so when I tried to be casual about sex, more than anything, it was me trying to like challenge myself. Demi Moore talks about how part of the reason why she took on striptease, she got paid $12 million to be a stripper in striptease, and at the time she was the highest paid female actress in the business because of it. And she mentioned that like the only reason, or not the only reason she wanted to take it, but part of the reason why she wanted to take it was to challenge herself to just like be more comfortable with her body and to move towards body neutrality. You know, she didn't say it like that, but like that's what she was moving towards. And I don't know, man. Like, it sucks that like this is not just like a big girl issue. Yeah, like you might look at me and be like, yeah, bitch, maybe you should be. Like, for a very society is so fat phobic. So I've been, told my whole life that like I should be ashamed of my body. And even when people listen now, they're probably like, yeah, bitch, you probably should be. Um, but like Demi Moore be having those same issues, bitch. That bitch is like a size 2. So this is not just like a big girl issue. This is like we are ingrained to hate ourselves from the moment, from before we can walk, dude. Like, I grew up hearing my aunts talk so much shit about their bodies. I grew up hearing from like my parents that like I was fat and I would, like, and then I'm not as small as they were when they were my age, and like just so many things. I was fat shamed so much, explicitly or implicitly, and never by school people. It was always by my family. My family fat shamed me more than anybody else in my whole life. So like, you know, um that's where it comes from first for me. Sex for me starts with liking myself. And so the way that like my therapist and I have been working on that is like me just like walking around in lingerie and looking myself in the mirror and being like, you look good, like, God, it sucks. It sucks. Being a woman's hell. That's all. I don't even know what I talked about this episode. All of a sudden, it's fucking 50 minutes later. I don't know what to tell you. It's hard. I'm like, I don't know. I'm battling through some shit right now. And the T is I feel better about my body right now. And this, like, as a bigger girl than I was when I was a teenager. I feel better about my body now than I ever did when I was 17, back when I was tiny. So, and I was never tiny. Uh, but like when I was smaller than I am now, I was a full-time athlete. I played sports like 30 hours a week. And like still I was judged by my family, dude. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. So of course I got a weird relationship to sex, dude. Of course there's a lot of shit going on. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm working on it. But like, of course there's some shit going on though. It's weird. But yeah. I love you guys very much. I will talk to you next week. I hope your Labor Day weekend was fun and safe. Drink some water, wash your face, and have a good week. I love you very much. Bye.